Welcome to Team More Wine, sir, the Game of Thrones Gorilla Cast for Boomtron's Optionated. I'm Elena, with me is Rachel, and we're here today to talk about the latest episode. So crack open a bottle like we just did, and sit back and listen in while we ramble and curse our way through a dissection of the episode. So, The Garden of Bones, Episode 4. Wow.
I knew you would like this one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when you alluded either in our first podcast or the anticipation piece we wrote that you predicted a lot of fucks coming up this season. Pretty sure this is one of those episodes. But let's start with the awesome part, the most awesome part of this episode, which was Dany and Karth and her dragon fire threat. What did you think about that scene? Because I loved it, but I don't know how it played in the books. I don't know if it matched your expectations or hopes for it. So what did you think?
In the books, they kind of like wine and dine her because everybody wants to see the dragon. So they definitely played up the you're outside our gates and you're at our mercy kind of thing. But that, I mean, for the sake of the story, she is at their mercy, right? I mean, she's starving. She has these people that she needs to care for that she can't. And all she has are these tiny little dragons. And kind of, it's really scary when you're reading from Dany's point of view because there's all these people and they all have money and power and everybody just wants the dragons. And it's like, God, you know what? They could just take them. Like, what's keeping them from slitting her throat, slitting Jorah's throat, and taking those things? So it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I picked up a little bit of that in her hesitation to show them. Might have been like a hesitation to expose them to someone else and prove, especially while they were at their most vulnerable, that they had the dragons. It might be a little bit harder to kill a group that's well-fed and rested and is now suspicious of everyone and everything around them. Right,
and there's also something, I don't know if they're really making it as big of a deal in the show as it is in the books, but because you read the first book, being someone's guest is a big deal. Like, if you are someone's guest, then you are sort of immune to them hurting you. So her sort of getting them to say, you are our guests. You're not just going to show us your dragons and then we'll kill you and take them from you. At least for Dany means they're relatively safe-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how much they're really emphasizing that or how much they're assuming people watching the show pick up on it just because that was an idea, I think, in the medieval times as well.
Right.
The sanctity of the guest-host relationship. And if you're someone's guest, you don't fuck over your host. And if if you have invited someone into your home and they are your guest, you don't fuck over them. It's kind of like the whole "my house is your house." They mean that very literally.
Right. And and so now she owes them because she owes Zoro Zohan Daxos, who in the book is not a Summer Islander, but like, who cares? It was sort of awkward. He's like, I am a Summer Islander. And it's like, all right. I always imagine the people of Karth to be like more Middle Eastern looking and not like a bunch of bald white people.
Yeah.
But whatever. I don't really care. I'm not one of those people that is gonna get all up in arms because somebody doesn't look the way that I think that they should. Like, I'm happy when they put more diversity into the cast. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy that he's a Summer Islander in that way. But, I don't care. Like, whatever. Yeah. He's a Summer Islander, fine.
My impression of the city is that it was probably meant to be, I guess, the most Byzantium-like of the places that we've seen in this world so far. It seemed very multicultural, very rich, very erudite, and we're all about the best of things in the world. And
totally arcane. Like, some of the stuff that they do is like, why do you do this? Because it's tradition and we always have.
Exactly. Yeah. And so in that sense, maybe it was a little bit whitewashed, but on the other hand, I don't know, maybe it's less politically correct these days to make them all Persians too. I don't know.
So. I know. It's so hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was hoping that we would get a little bit more Dany, but fine, whatever. She's in the city.
Yeah. Well, I think what we traded was some intrigue Dany for a moment of Dany getting to be a fucking badass.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, that moment blew me away when she was just like, if you don't let us in, when my dragons are grown, we will lay waste to cities and destroy the world. And if you turn us away, we will burn you first. And I got chills. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I'm like, oh my God.
She delivered that line like amazingly. Like she was like shaking with anger. Like she could like barely get it out. She was so mad. Yeah. And it was funny because Jorah's like, wait, Khaleesi.
And she's like, no. Nobody turns their fucking back on Khaleesi. You do not turn your back on Khaleesi.
That's where that, like, you woke the dragon.
That was, oh my God, they did wake the dragon. And they have no idea how much experience that girl had in growing up with her fucking crazy brother about waking the dragon.
Yeah.
So, well, what I loved was that I couldn't figure out the motivation there at the end. If that Xanos, can I call him Xanos? Is that part of his name?
Sure.
Xaxos, what? Yeah. It's just gonna get worse the more derivations I try.
It's Xaro.
Xaro?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't figure out if Xaro stepped in because he actually believed her, and he was like, wait, if she doesn't die, we're in a world of shit, or if he felt like the other guy was actually afraid of her, and he's like, what the fuck, it's a girl and 6 Dothraki and maybe some dragons, or maybe just a story, who's fucking afraid of that? I'm not going to be the asshole. I couldn't figure out what his motivation was, and so I don't know if I even want to know, or if it's kind of better to sort of play with the ambiguity of, did he believe her and actually think maybe I should mitigate this threat, or was it just straight compassion?
I'm not going to say anything to you about him.
For the best. We can discover as we go.
I mean, I think you can, if you think about, like, what Dany brings to the table.
It may have just been a politically wise choice.
Yeah, here's something, it doesn't hurt you to give this a chance, and it could reap, great benefits. I think is what he's going for.
Yeah, but that was a really excellent moment. And to your point about one of the things you'd said about Dany's story in the book, how she's like, I know you've said, oh God, Elena thinks that Dany's story is going slowly in the first book. Yeah. I actually I'm enjoying watching it unfold, probably because they are doing things like this to kind of punch it up and make it a little more dramatic.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just her kind of sitting around.
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know how proactive she is by this point in the book, but maybe also make her a little more proactive earlier.
She's gaining savvy. I mean, she is becoming, them calling her the Mother of Dragons is like a big turning point for her, because that is really when she moves beyond just being a girl to a wife to a Khaleesi, and now she's something much, much larger, and she's starting to feel that responsibility.
Yeah, she's not just the last Targaryen princess, or Khal Drogo's trophy wife.
Right. So yes, I also liked the shout out when she was like Quarth, and they were like Karth, and I don't know if that was like a weird pet peeve from the writers. Like, I've never heard anyone say Quarth, so maybe there are people out there saying it incorrectly. I don't know, but I thought that was funny. I was like, are they trying to tell people to stop saying Quarth? Like,
maybe
because there's no U in it. It's like QA. So.
Oh. I thought that it was spelled like Quarth, but, since they pronounced it Karth, I was like, why didn't she immediately just pronounce it and assume it was spelled like Ka or something?
Well, I think we're also dealing with the idea that they're speaking a lot of different languages, and they're not doing that for us. It's like the Star Trek effect, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And I'm glad that they didn't bother making those people have weird accents, I guess. But
yeah, it's hard enough.
But on the other hand, you do kind of lose that sort of multicultural conflict.
Right,
where that communication barrier.
Well, I'm sure that Karth will be as multicultural as we hope for it to be. But let's go back to Westeros now.
Yeah, so the one other new face we got this episode was the sort of battlefield medic after the Stark Lannister battle, and my first impression with her was Rob's looking at her like, that's who I want for my queen. Like, fuck that bitch that my mother promised me to. I want somebody who can hack a man's foot off and not cry about it, and then like chastise a fucking king about his strategy. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was projecting onto his face. You don't have to say, but if you want to say.
Well, it is kind of a complicated issue because Una Chaplin, this character that she names herself anyway, which I'm calling Mumbles from Volantis, but I think her name is Talisi or Talisa or something like that. I was watching it in a bar, and as soon as she said her name, everybody looked at each other and said, "What did she say?" So I didn't
realize she said her name ever.
Yeah, right at the very end when she was sitting on the, and she like taps it and like she's moving away, and he's like, "What are you? Tell me your name," very.
Aww.
No, anyway, that character doesn't exist, so people are thinking that they're taking a couple of characters or one character from the book and merging it into another or redoing the entire character. I don't know, I want to see the next episode, but yes, her name is Mumbles of Volantis.
Okay, and is she actually going to appear in future episodes? Because she could also just be one of those sort of stray characters who comes in, speaks the truth, changes his life by speaking that, and he never sees her again. Right. I mean, that happens.
If she's going to fulfill the character role that I suspect she is, then she'll be back.
I suspect she'll be back too, but...
Yeah, it's kind of hard to deal with because you watch things expecting to just see sort of translations of what you've read, and then you realize, no, it's an adaptation. They're going to change things. They're going to add characters. They're going to meld characters. Some people are really mad about it, and some people are fine. So yes, Rob has been struck with perhaps a love bug.
Possibly. And, even if it's not, I think Rob needs to really think about the truth that she pointed out to him, which is, dude, you're fighting a war for a throne that you don't want. So what happens when you win and you go back to the North and say, hey, y'all, I'm king of the North, but do what the fuck you want as long as you don't fuck with me? But it is kind of important for him to think about that. I know he's all like, we have to win the war first. No, dude, you might need to start thinking strategically now because perhaps you can ally yourself with someone that together y'all can win the war and then just create that nice dividing line and say, okay, we're going to be North and South for two kingdoms. You go do your thing. I'll do my thing.
But if you do that, then, I mean, he's going to be bestowing that upon someone else. And you get the feeling that this is sort of the same problem that Robert and Ned had at the conclusion of their own rebellion.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. I that was my thought, was this is exactly what his dad did. His dad walked away from it, and look what the consequence was.
Yeah, it all went to shit because he wasn't there to tell people no. Yes, but hey, there's no way, that's the best way I know of to pick up a guy, right? You cut off a dude's leg without flinching. Covered in gore and mud.
and then you tell him off and, basically tell him he's a fucking moron. Yeah, that gets him every time. Every time.
Oh, Rob.
Well, but the thing I will say about this, in this world, when so many women do, I think, define their roles as it relates to their family, as it relates to the men in their life, and I know that we're kind of treated as the audience to a lot of women who are rejecting that in one way or another because those are the interesting women. They're the special women. If all the women in a show were like Sansa, no women would watch the show, So we have to kind of get the highlights of Westeros. Like here's, piece by piece, the best of the strategies for not giving, for basically not living within the patriarchy, but having some autonomy and authority and power of your own. So, but in Rob's experience, the only woman he's ever met who probably has any of that is his mother, and yet Catelyn is in many ways an extremely dutiful wife and lady to her house and her husband. And so for him, that's like rocking his world. He's never met somebody. He's never met Brienne. He's never met Asha. And while his sister's Arya, she's a kid, and that's a different issue. And so for him, he's probably like, oh my God, I've never met a woman like this. And that could be a very exciting thing.
Right. And that would also sort of kind of be a change to that character, which I think is a welcome change. I'm just going to be honest, that character that I think that Una is, encompassing is very flat and not really all that important, except for, never mind. I don't know. It's funny because I have this theory that Mumbles is lying about her name and where she's from. But we'll see. Can't wait till if we get to see her again. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's funny that people are really hard. Like, everyone's rooting for Robb right now, I think. Maybe it's something to root for. Give him something to do besides kill people. I mean, he's killing people rather well right now.
Yeah, him and
So,
Grey Wolf, which that was just a badass opening. Oh my goodness.
yeah, except for the fuck though. That was so stupid.
No, that was classic, like Shakespearean low humor, and then it, also kind of heightens the dramatic irony because, of course, we as the audience know that we're not going to get an opening of two guards literally farting around because there's no dramatic reason, there's no narrative reason for that. So we kind of know going in that there is something out there, and then the one guy tries to, play it off. Oh, there's nothing, and then too late.
Yeah.
There's a wolf in your face and you're dead. And that was an awesome pile of guts hanging out, by the way, when they flashed to Dawn and said it's just a body with his, ropey intestines. I'm like, that's awesome. Yes, please. More
Yay.
of this.
Guts. I'm not into the guts, actually. I kind of don't. I'm like, ew. Wrong show, I know, but still. All right, so we talked about Robb. Do you want to go to King's Landing?
Yeah, I mean, while we're on the subject of made-up characters, we can talk about Roz's adventure. Shit.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's put this in perspective,
the scene.
Right? So Tyrion is, doing his thing. He's still moving people around, messing with people, pissing off his sister, and that super powerful scene in the throne room where he comes in and sort of rescues Sansa from being maimed possibly by the King's Guard under Joffrey's orders.
Yeah.
Pretty badass, right? Why does he always get the most badass entries? He's always just kind of sweeping into rooms and fucking with everybody. That's what he does now.
Yes, well, that's the Emmy power for you.
Yeah.
But no, that was a callback to the first time we meet Joffrey, which is where Tyrion slaps him in the face and basically calls his nephew a little shit. Mm-hmm. That's what I remember about Tyrion's relationship with Joffrey. So Tyrion apparently is the only one who has the kind of authority in the family and the willingness to put his nephew in his place and be like, look, you're being a fucking dumbass. No, stop. He's the only one who ever tells him no.
Well, that's because, if Joffrey's left to his own devices, that's the next generation of Lannister, and, he's just gonna fuck it up, and everybody's gonna laugh at them. And, Tyrion laughs at them, but he's the only one that can because he is a Lannister, right?
That's actually a really interesting point, because that's putting it on Tyrion's, family pride and his interest in the future of the family, whereas I tend to assume it's more just, a personal frustration with...
Oh, I'm sure.
The parenting style of the lame-ass parenting style of his siblings who literally, let their kids have anything. Oh, you're so special. You're sunshine. You're going to be the king. You can do whatever you want. No. And he summed it up so beautifully and so powerfully. The Mad King got to do whatever he wanted. Did your Uncle Jamie ever tell you what happened to him?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, burn.
Yeah, well, he's just a little sociopath. So yeah, except that without that happening, we wouldn't have gotten that lovely little, sort of moment when the Hound comes and puts his dirty ass cloak on Sansa's shoulders, which is just kind of sweet and odd. Why would he do that? You don't think of him as a person.
Well, see, I was actually waiting because they showed him. They showed him standing there watching. Mm-hmm. And I was actually waiting for the moment where he stepped in and put a stop to it. And maybe it's just because I've heard lots of Sansan shipping.
Yeah, well, I think Sandor wouldn't do that. I don't think he would actually stop it.
Yeah.
Let's not give him too much credit. He's still a bad, bad man who kills children, right? But, once in a while, he's like, hey, naked lady, have my cloak. It's gross, but it's better than nothing.
And he was the one who stepped up first.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he comes in. So Tyrion comes in and he saves Sansa, and he's very gallant. And Bronn and his epic line.
Well, I know I wrote it down.
Can't cure being a cunt.
Yes, there's no cure for being a cunt. And and the funny thing is, Tyrion almost, not quite, but for me personally, almost tops that moment when Sansa walks off and she's like, I'm loyal to my king, Joffrey, my one true love. And he's like, she might survive us all yet. Like, Tyrion just predicted Sansa being, like, standing next to the Iron Throne at the end. What?
Hey, and Tyrion is George's avatar. We know that. So
Exactly. So, you know.
Place your bets, friends. Place your bets. No, it's good. So yeah, this isn't in the book, but yeah, so Bronn has this whole like, oh, let's send him some prostitutes. He can work off some of that sexual frustration. And so he does. He goes down to Littlefingers. I'm just going to call it Littlefingers. I have no idea what the brothel's called, but I think that's a good name for a brothel.
I agree.
So goes down, he picks out Roz, of course, because she has to have a scene in every show.
Yes.
And one of the other girls sends her on their way, and then we get the kind of horrific scene in which he makes them abuse each other.
Yes, the when keeping it real goes wrong.
Yeah, that was really super fucked up. I was actually really nervous about this because a lot of people started complaining about it this week. Like, some of the reviewers were calling it like the most disturbing sex scene they'd ever seen. Like, everybody's, imaginations were just getting super riled up. Like, oh my God, what horrible, horrible thing. And I mean, it was pretty horrible. But I don't think it was like...
It was far from the most horrible sex scene or rape scene or any kind of abusive sexual situation scene that I've seen. Now, I don't know who these reviewers are or what their kind of frame of reference is. For them, it might well have been the worst thing they've ever seen. But for me, it was disturbing, but it wasn't... It was not that disturbing to me. It was more like the psychology of how horrible that would be to find yourself forced to inflict that kind of pain on someone else when that's not something you enjoy. That was more horrifying to me than what was actually done, which was, she got spanked and then she got her ass beaten with a thing. I was that's or was it meant to be like an ass rape with it?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm thinking penetration. Not beating her.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was thinking beating just because of the way Rod kind of gestured with it at the end, but I wasn't. I was left not being sure, and we haven't really seen the fallout from that, so we don't know.
Well, we didn't see him, but we know that he sent them back to Tyrion afterwards.
Right, which I don't know if that's something that we'll see next episode, maybe.
Yeah. So he sent them back. I mean, that's got to be kind of fucked up. Like, I feel like Tyrion has a soft spot for whores because, they're pretty much the only people in Westeros that have ever shown him any kind of compassion, even if he pays them. So I'm pretty sure he's going to get pissed.
Well, they treat him fairly. They treat him like any other man. If he's got the money to pay, they're like, whatever.
Right.
And, no, I actually think that this was kind of a fascinating way for him to end up getting his nephew's true measure, and Joffrey wants him to know. I also think it's funny that of all the things his mother told him, the one that apparently stuck was, Joffrey, you're too good to go sticking your peen anywhere except your royal lady wife. Like, that's the lesson, that's the one lesson from Cersei, all her nattering at him over his 14 years of existence, that he actually learned.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like an arguable thing, right? Because if you want to like the psychology of Joffrey, which you could probably do like a book on, like, is it because he's, that he's too good for it, or is he kind of scared so he's turning it around, or is it because there's something that Tyrion picked out and he doesn't want to touch anything that could possibly, you know what I mean? Like, is he like a I only do virgins kind of like fucked up dude? Like, yeah,
well, I did think just kind of, and I think that I don't know what Joffrey is supposed to look like as he gets a little bit older, and I know they aged them up for the show, but that guy, he's a very slender young man, and he looks very boyish, and I was looking at the kind of juxtaposition of Roz and the other girl, who were both very obviously experienced older women.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered why those two were the two that got picked.
Those are the two that Tyrion picked.
Right, those are the ones who appealed to Tyrion. I don't think he did a good job of figuring out what's going to appeal to Joffrey. Joffrey would want someone who could at least act young and innocent and scared.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Littlefinger has women who can do that, who maybe aren't actually that person but could pretend to be that person.
Yeah, because it would be kind of horrible to send in like some young little
an actual kind of young virgin, but
yeah, who wouldn't be able to defend herself against him. Like
right.
somebody, it definitely needs to be someone who's canny.
Mhm.
But
if you've got a 17-year-old whore who's been doing it since she was 13,
yeah.
she's got plenty of experience and she's going to be able to take care of herself. And at the same time, she would have kind of the right look and I guess age, there wouldn't be the age difference because that might have been putting off too. He's just like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do with these women?
Right. Well,
I'm the prince. I can't do anything wrong. They'll laugh at me.
Yeah, right. And then like they'll go off and tell everyone, including Littlefinger. It's kind of not a good plan. And then there's also Tyrion. Tyrion is kind of opening himself up to his nephew, right? Because Joffrey could be like, why did you pick these girls? And then he could kind of be like, what are these the kind of girls that Tyrion picks? And then he'd be like, Tyrion hasn't picked anybody in a while. And it's like, I wonder why. And then it's like a little like, maybe you shouldn't even touch that. Maybe you should have just stayed away from it.
Yeah, maybe. Especially because don't you know by this point that it was Joffrey, not the queen, sending people after the babies? I don't think your sister's the one you really need to be concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there are people out there who will do what he tells them to do, even if it's a stupid idea. I don't know. Well, there are some characters in the books, some whores that they've cut out and sort of replaced like Roz is like taking the place of like all the prostitutes. She's all of them.
Yeah, well, obviously their clear goal is to show us the range and breadth of a whore's life in Winterfell. It's the character study of not Winterfell, excuse me, a Westeros whore.
Yeah.
So, all the experiences that any whore had in the entire book are going to be funneled through Roz so that we can see everything that a whore might possibly do.
And then, like, Roz becomes the greatest prostitute that was ever alive because she, like, knows everyone. She's done everyone. She's been everywhere. She's suffered all of the things.
Yes, Roz is rapidly on her way to becoming the Inara Sera of Westeros.
Yeah, exactly. She'll be a courtesan. By season 3, she'll be like wandering around in the throne room.
Yes. Bearing witness to the bumfuckery that's going on.
Exactly. She'll be
Whichever
Madame
king
Pompadour.
is in there, it's going to be some kind of fucked up shit. Because the only one who wouldn't have fucked up shit is Robb, and he's either going to be dead or back in Winterfell. So.
Except though, this is George Martin we're talking about, so never say never.
Let me see. I think we needed to talk a little bit about Lancel as well.
Oh yes, Lancel, the whole Lancel scene.
Our mascot,
Lancel!
When
did you like his jacket? I was like, damn, Lancel, that's a good jacket.
Yeah, he's obviously been fucking Cersei right if she's showering that kind of gift upon him. I mean, he's gone from the poor trembling, more wine, sir? Page boy to like strutting his shit like I'm OG Mac wannabe player and... then he makes the mistake of doing Cersei's bidding as soon as she tells him to, and it's the middle of the night. And I'm like, dude, you need to learn some courtly skills because that boy was like, I came right away, and you knew he was telling the truth. You're like, dude, you lie and say, you're right, Uncle Tyrion, Uncle Cousin Tyrion, you caught me, I stopped at a brothel.
It's true. And the thing is, you can't really properly punish him because, once again, he is a Lannister.
Yeah.
So.
Well, beyond that, I don't know how much leeway his father actually gave to Tyrion. And
I'm sure it's not as
he's
much as
worried about, actually testing the rope that Tywin gave him. He's like, I don't want to do enough that word gets back to my father about this. I want to keep it just within the line of plausibility.
Yeah. I'm sure. Well, we'll see. I mean, eventually Tywin has to come back, right?
Yeah.
Eventually. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that was great. I was like, yay, Lancel, he's back.
Well, and there was also a great Lucky Number 11 moment where he's like, it's not my fault. It was an accident.
Yeah.
And that line where Josh Hartnett is standing there crunching an apple. He's like, what? Like, she tripped and you fell?
Well, I think it's more to, Cersei's so beautiful that you can't resist her, right? And if she wants you, then what are you going to say no to the queen?
Yeah. Well, see, I actually think it's more compelling. You don't say no to the queen. more than she's so beautiful, no man can resist her.
But she is in the books, right? Like, maybe not so much in the show. She's not really playing the sensual aspect. But in the books, she is an extremely sensual woman. That's like how she interacts with everyone.
The way Marjorie Tyrell acts, I think, is more how Cersei is described in the book. And I think, and maybe that's part of why, because I've never really been fond of the way Cersei's played on the show, and maybe that's because they took that out. They made her a little harder and, weirdly enough, a little, like, in her kind of personal demeanor, a little too sweet. Like, until she bites you, and then she's a viper.
She's very sad. She plays very sad.
Yeah, so you kind of think, oh, she's just like a sweet, sad damsel in distress, and then you realize she's a raging cunt. But at the same time, she doesn't present herself in a way that seems like she's actually trying. She doesn't seem like she's trying, is the thing, to, like, she's not trying to seduce anyone. She's not trying to, sway the men of the court to her side because of her beauty or by keeping them all sort of, on the side with the hots for her.
Right.
Yeah, she's not playing that at all.
No, she's just giving it to Lancel.
She's giving it to Lancel because she has power over him, and he.
Well, that and he looks a little bit like Jaime, I'm sure.
Yeah, and she's like, well, if he knocks me up, it'll still be a Lannister, so it's okay. Like, I think she's very much in the I'm not going to breed with some mongrel.
Well, I'm sure Cersei has ways of preventing pregnancy.
Probably.
The moon tea. There's always a moon tea.
Yeah, the fantasies always do have that.
That fantasy trope of moon tea. It's there, and it's always stupid moon tea. All right, so Lancel's getting some, but now he's spying for Tyrion. So Tyrion's moving people around, and he also moves Littlefinger over to Renly's camp to go talk to Cat. So that's a good segue.
Yes.
Let's go talk to the Baratheon brothers.
Yes. So since while we're on the subject of Littlefinger, and Renly's like, my favorite whoremonger. All I can think, Renly, he's everybody's favorite whoremonger. Come on, let's just be honest. He is.
It's true, but a lot of people are complaining about this because Littlefinger's an extremely subtle man, and in the books, you don't forget he exists, but he kind of sways you, even the reader with more knowledge than the people he interacts with. You're kind of like, yeah, I see what you're doing. You're a cool dude. And then he'll like kind of pop his head up and be like, I did everything, and then kind of go away. And they're not really doing that in the show. He's just kind of like telling everybody his secrets, including all the whores who go around and screw everybody and tell everybody his secrets. I feel like that's not a good plan if you're the master of secrets. Like,
yeah, I do feel like they have maybe over-explained him and, as you say, sort of sacrificed the entire power of his character.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he's obvious about what he's doing and everyone knows his secrets, then I'm sorry, he would have been killed a long time ago.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think maybe it's because I don't want him to be too much like Varys, because Varys is actually the master of whisperers, and he's very kind of canny and has been around for a long time. But, I think Varys versus Littlefinger is like a serious...
I think that's the true power struggle of this story, honestly.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Well, they're the only two that have hesitated to try and actually take power. They're both content to be fiddling behind the scenes and therefore not a target because no one knows no one knows how many strings they have on their hands, like how many puppets they can make dance.
Right.
So no one really understands what kind of threat or what kind
Except that it's like, oh no, go talk to Cat, and he'll be like, Cat, I used to love you. Here's your dead husband. Do you want a bone? What kind of plan is this, Littlefinger? What are you doing?
Well, that's the thing about Littlefinger that I couldn't figure out from my brief time with him in the books, is if he actually still is in love with Catelyn, or if it was simply one of the defining moments of his life that he used to love her and couldn't have her. I really don't know. And with this, I think they're playing it like he still is. Like, he obviously jumps on Tyrion's bait. I can go see Catelyn. Okay. And
why is that a good consolation prize? Like, you're going to send me out to the camp of your enemy, and then they'll be like, hey, this guy's on the small council. Let's, arrest him.
Well, yeah, exactly. And not to mention the fact that he had a significant hand in Ned's death, and you
Yeah.
think that,
No,
you
I
know,
was just there. I was just there.
you're like, dude, she's not gonna buy
He's
it.
like, I mean, what could I have done? I was like, wow, you're pulling a Lancel right now.
Right? And he's all like, no, it was fate. And I'm like, no, Littlefinger, it wasn't fate. It was you. You did that. You probably set Ned up to get killed because you thought you could get Catelyn
You had
afterward.
bought off the gold cloaks correctly.
Right? And I can't figure out if that's the most diabolical stroke of genius or the most pathetic thing I've ever heard. Probably B, honestly.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, especially he's like, here are the bones of your husband, but now we can be together.
And she's like, get out. He's like, okay, I'll come back later. Tomorrow you'll feel better.
Meanwhile, out on the moor, we've got like Renly versus Stannis, and like
Oh,
Catelyn's just sort of there randomly being like, oh, if you were my sons, I would smack your heads together. And it's like, shut the fuck up, Catelyn.
yeah, just don't call attention to yourself. You just need to like creep out in the night.
Yeah, because
Just
then
go.
all you gotta do is Renly being like, don't tell me what to do, woman. And then Stannis being like, hey, I'm sorry, aren't you supposed to be on my side?
Right? Your husband died to make me the king like I'm supposed to be, so...
Yeah, and then she's kind of like, oh, you see all these men around, I'm just gonna sit here.
Yeah, and like she couldn't even point out that, well, my son's now a king too, and so that makes him your enemy because you are claiming the entire continent, you know. But there were several great lines, like, why is your stag on fire? Oh, he was born amid salt and smoke. What, is he a ham? I had a really good back and forth.
Yeah, and Melisandre being like, oh, my king is better than your king. And then Catelyn's like, I'm not doing what you're doing.
Catelyn just gave her the bitch, please, look.
It's like, okay, crazy lady. And then the crazy lady's like, I'll be naked for everyone. Everyone want to see me naked. Like, 'cause that's how she communicates with others.
Yes.
With her vagina. I mean, seriously, she greets everyone vagina first.
Yes, she is. She's very much a Maud Lebowski. The very word makes men uncomfortable. What, you mean vagina? Yes.
It's true. I love that. I mean, we can move on to the scene in the cave with Melisandre and Davos if you want, because my Davos impression, that's my new go-to like thing that I do.
Okay.
It's my Davos trying to look at her vagina without looking at her vagina impression. Kind of like half bends over and kind of looks and like is really horrified and kind of looks away and then looks again.
He's like, yes, she did just show me her vagina. Oh my god, she's crowning. Oh my god, what's going on? I don't understand. My knuckle bones are not going to save me. Oh my god.
Knuckle bones. Oh, his poor knuckle bones. That was a good scene between him and Stannis too. He's like,
yes.
You were good with the cleaver.
Yes, that's a t-shirt. You were good with the cleaver.
Good with the cleaver. That's going on my Stannis t-shirt. I'll just put that on underneath the other quotes. Good with cleaver. Obviously,
yes.
He should be king.
No, obviously he should be your god. Come on, like let's not sell this short here.
Yes, he is the chosen one. He is R'hllor's chosen. Speaking of R'hllor's chosen, I guess Melisandre came through on that promise of a bastard son.
Yeah, that was a fucking Bella baby. We cannot escape the scourge.
I appreciated Shadow Baby because Shadow Baby actually thought to like grab the ankles and pull itself out, you know, like no pushing required.
That's a good point.
Why don't babies do that?
Yeah, dude, that scene, oh my god, there was so much, like, what the fucking in that scene. Like, I think that was just, like, every moment of that scene where, basically from the part where she is like, it's not going to be a barrier for us, and then you're like, what the fuck is she talking about?
Then she's like, hey, want to have sex? And then she's like, oh wait, no, I'm pregnant. Hey, now I'm naked. Oh, now I'm having a baby.
Exactly. Just like, so she's like, what the fuck? Why did she just get naked? You're like, what the fuck? Why is she like 9 months pregnant? What the fuck? Why did she need to come onto this shore to, you know, birth it? What the fuck? What is that coming out of her? Oh my god, this is like Satan fucked Sin and death was the result. So which one's Satan and which one's Sin here? Like, oh my god.
Unknown. Well, I think we can make an educated guess, but come on, Shadow Baby is my favorite character.
Is Shadow Baby a character? Like, I don't know if Shadow Baby's a character yet. Shadow Baby is just a shadow, and I'm truly frightened for Friendly and Court, and I hope Littlefinger snuck off in the night like Littlefingers want to do, because I'm not ready for him to die.
So I have a question for you, Elena.
Yes.
Is Melisandre magical?
Yes. You were right. Whoa, damn.
I mean, it could totally be explained, right?
No, there is no explaining that. Not even bad onions cause you to hallucinate that badly.
Well, you know, this kind of proves my point. A lot of people want to say that Game of Thrones is the anti-fantasy series, that it's gritty and rooted in realism, and which kind of is hilarious to me because it starts out with zombies.
Yeah.
And we have, you know, and there are more and more magical things, including dragons. And it's like, yeah, dragons are animals, but they're dragons, like fucking unicorns, you know, like it's the same thing. They're magical. And then people are always kind of resistant to the magic thing. And then Melisandre Shadow Baby happens, and they're kind of like forced to, you know, to admit to themselves that they are reading a fantasy series. And that it might do it in a gritty way, but it has all of the tropes of your standard fantasy series, and that's okay. It's okay to have the standard stuff. And I think people are really resistant. Like, no, Game of Thrones is different than everything. And it's like, well, it's the same.
Yeah, see, I've never actually read Game of Thrones as being different from standard fantasy so much as it is.
Well, it's like fantasy for people who don't like fantasy and like shit like that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because for me, it's more just like fantasy plus like the actual gore and nastiness of character that would have come in that kind of situation. Not, and I figure like knowing that the series is 4 to 7 books long, you know, when I started, I was like, well, even if there's not magic right away, like it could come in later.
Well, right. I think maybe the significant difference that Game of Thrones has is that magic doesn't really solve problems the way that it would in, say, like Wheel of Time.
Right.
It's not the answer. It's just something that exists.
And causes more problems.
It potentially causes more problems. It can also help you out, but it's not necessarily the end all be all. Like, you don't need magic to be the king of Westeros.
Yeah.
It just helps maybe sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on whose perspective you're coming from, whether this helps or hurts. Obviously, I was like, oh my god, did I actually predict it correctly that Renly gets 4 episodes? Because if I did, how the fuck did Rachel keep a straight face in all the times we joked about that? Which there may have only been once that we actually recorded, but we joked about that several times.
Yes. So. I'm just drunk all the time, really, and I lie a lot. It helps. It helps that I lie.
Yeah. Well, man, just that whole thing though with Melisandre, like that's fascinating to me for a couple of reasons. I mean, first, the male comment that I got out of that scene was, this is why witches got burned at the stake. It was actually like a 5-minute diatribe about how terrifying that is to a man, and like how, you know, it's something you just can't understand, and you're like, yeah, that's why people stood aside and let women they knew get burned, because if they could do that, if you thought they could possibly do that, you're like, I don't care if she's innocent, burn her anyway, just in case. Because that's just, even to a woman though, like for me, like that was actually a horrifying kind of scene.
Oh, totally horrifying.
Because it is, I guess, such a subversion of the one thing that women can do that men cannot, that is give new life to something, and that's supposed to be, it is supposed to be almost kind of holy, because you're giving a new life, and that's positive and hopeful, and
you don't think the
next
Shadow
generation
Baby is new life?
No, I think the Shadow Baby is death, and I think that that's what makes it horrifying, not just to men, but also to women, because it's taking this thing that's supposed to be beautiful and making it horrifying.
Yeah.
And it really is like a subversion of everything that that moment is supposed to be. And that's
Davos is pretty horrified. Hey, I like the part where he's like, "Don't talk about my wife."
Right?
It's like, stop talking about my wife, you scary whore. I hate you.
Yes, you red woman.
So she has a name, and then he calls her Red Woman anyway, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because he knows it's easy. It's her true name. It's Red Woman.
It is.
Like, he knows. Stannis ain't that dumb. He knows.
So Shadow Baby is awesome.
Shadow Baby's so fucked up, y'all. What the fucking fuck? And I was like, what the F?
Because I was watching that in this bar that we all go to in New York. And it was great because you could see like half the bar was kind of like high-fiving each other like Shadow Babies, and they were giving out, and people had died, so they were giving out free Jello shots. We were all doing our Jello shots like Shadow Babies, and then there was like all the people who were like, what the fuck is happening? Everyone had their phones out. They're like tweeting at each other like, what the fucking shit? What is this? Like. And everybody's like, welcome to Game of Thrones. It only gets worse. Yes. Like, if you think Shadow Babies is fucked up, you should probably just stop watching.
Fair warning.
But, speaking of fucked up, let's move on to our last point of the day. Yeah, did you like the way the tickler was tickling his patients? That was fun.
Yeah, that was super fucked up. My initial reaction to that was I didn't really understand the tactical point of Torture Mountain. That was what I was calling
Torture Mountain. That's wait. Are you calling Harrenhal Torture Mountain or the Mountain Torture Mountain?
Harrenhal Torture Mountain.
Oh, okay, because I was like
Night on Bald Mountain, except this is Night on Torture Mountain. Yeah, and I was just like, what's the point of this place? Like, what are they trying?
That's the shitty castle that Tyrion offered to Littlefinger.
Is that what Tyrion offered to Littlefinger? Well, that's about what the Vale is worth. Yeah.
Yeah, right? You think that's why you're like, I don't know if that's such a good deal.
You've seen Harrenhal, Littlefinger. You've seen it on a map, but have you seen it?
He said it was cursed.
It looks cursed. Oh my god.
It looks cursed.
Like, I know that you made that you that was such a brilliant caption, though. Shit, we're going to Isengard. that was what I thought when they showed that. I'm like, oh my god, they did go to Isengard. Fucked up. This place sucks.
It's true. Well, because he died like Boromir, and then they kind of got carried off, and I was like, oh, yeah. They're Merry and Pippin.
Yes.
And Hot Pie.
Yeah, it'd be like if Sam had gotten kidnapped instead of going with Frodo.
No, I feel like Hot Pie is more like one of the ponies they ride.
But poor old Bill.
Yeah, it's Bill the
Poor old Bill. Poor old Bill.
But yeah, so we have the tickler torturing people, asking where the Brotherhood is.
And I was like, the pertinent questions: who the fuck is the Brotherhood?
Yeah.
Have we about them? Who's the Brotherhood? I don't know.
Who indeed, Elena? Who is the Brotherhood?
I feel like there was something about a sisterhood earlier.
The sisterhood was referring to the Silent Sisters. Those are the women that handle the dead.
Okay.
They handle the bodies and all that stuff. The women with like the weird little flags.
Okay. Yeah, and I can picture them.
Yeah, that is completely different than the Brotherhood.
Okay. Yeah, if the Brotherhood has come up before, I do not remember the context, and so I was just like, why the fuck are they asking about the Brotherhood? Is this a joke? And then you see that one guy just sitting there like grinning, eating his like shit while he's watching it, and I'm like, yeah, it's a joke. They're like asking about information that they know it doesn't even exist. Like, what a bunch of assholes. And then that's where I was like, what is the tactical point of this place? Like, if you need to kill people, just fucking kill them. Like,
yeah, what is the tactical point of Harrenhal? Well, we know from Littlefinger that it is a large castle, that it allows whoever holds it to command most of the Riverlands, right? And it also sucks a lot. And apparently, according to Tywin, who sweeps in at the end, yay, Tywin is back. I kind of cheered myself.
Yes, I do too. Tywin's awesome.
Yes, they need a lot of men to man the shitty collapsing towers of Harrenhal.
Yeah. Well, I just love how he just comes in and he's kind of like, honestly, Tyrion is his true son, because Tywin just sort of strolls in and he just has this charisma and he starts speaking truth and he's like,
do we have the able-bodied men and skilled laborers to just kill all of these people?
Especially
No.
a smith.
What
Like,
the fuck
smiths
are
are valuable. Like, people steal smiths from other men. Like, why would you kill one?
Exactly, because you're fucking retarded.
And then he's like, hey, that's a girl.
Yeah, like Arya, that obviously that disguise was not, it was only good for the people who like had a double-digit IQ in this world, because like obviously like on one glance, Gendry and Tywin both like figured out that you were not actually a boy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's pretty funny, because it's like, yeah, no shit, she's not a boy. She doesn't look like a boy at all. But I mean, whatever. People see what they expect, so I mean, it's arguable that why. But Tywin definitely, knows it's a girl, and he's making her his new cupbearer.
It did cross my mind to wonder. I'm like, I don't know if Tywin Lannister really knows what the Stark look is, but there was so much made about Arya having the Stark look. Like, she and Jon Snow are the two siblings that look like Starks, and she's the spitting image of her sister Lyanna, who, had the Stark look. Like, there's a lot made about that. I'm like, if Tywin knows what the Starks look like, he might figure out pretty quick who she is.
Well, let's be clear. In the book, Tywin is not here at this point. There's the Mountain, and then there's some other people. They're sort of condensing. Okay. So, like, yeah, maybe it's reasonable to think that he would have suspicions about her, but at this point he can't, because the original storyline doesn't support it.
So in that case, it's just, as you kind of said in an email to me, that he's like, okay, there's a girl who's smart enough to dress up like a boy because it's safer. She's probably not going to spill as much wine on me as Hot Pie over there. So
or pee on me.
Yeah, or pee on me, exactly. She will not reek of urine once I'm getting that.
But it's also good for her because, if she's going to be his cupbearer, that means that she's going to be around while important people are talking over her head.
Yes, absolutely. So she'll be learning a lot. She'll be in a position where if somebody from her brother's camp comes in,
she can kind of wave her hand and be like, save me!
Exactly. And she'll be protected.
What if she has an audience with Robb? That would be cool.
Exactly. And she'll be somewhat protected as Tywin's kind of one of his personal assistants. Like, nobody's gonna fuck with her.
Right, exactly. Because she can just be on an errand from him, so no one's gonna, beat her.
Yeah, and a motherfucker like that, no one is going to, like, he's one of those kind of, he doesn't even have to wave a sword around for you to know.
No, are you kidding me? Guy guts deer with his bare hands.
Any fucking lord who's like the richest lord in the kingdom that still guts his own deer just for fun, like, he's fucking badass. And so nobody is going to want to risk, like, his wrath.
Yeah, exactly. Tywin is a vamp.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited about that because, this is a slight deviation. They're sort of condensing a few things, like I said, but it's also exciting for me because I don't really know where they're going to go, and I don't know what they're going to rewrite. And, they're taking this third book and making it into 2 seasons, so they potentially have some room. Mm-hmm. So, like, add in totally new storylines.
To actually have the Arya Gendry side adventure story.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited about that. I really liked this episode. I thought it was much better than the last episode. I can't wait to see. Did you see the preview for next week?
I did not. Somehow I never seem to watch those.
Well, it was like a quick, little 10-second thing where Arya's talking to Jock and Hagar.
Ooh.
Remember the guy that she gave the sauce so he could get out of the cage?
Hannibal
Lecter, right. So he said, you saved us. So you took 3 from the Red God. We need to give them back.
Uh-oh.
And then she says, I tell you any name and you'll kill them. And then, dun dun dun. So.
Dude, that's awesome. Because, with the whole Arya, like, counting the names.
Exactly. Her sort of new, like, vengeance gig where she's like mini Batman, where she like goes to bed every night saying everybody's names that she hates.
Yeah. She's like, Cersei Lannister. Yeah, I forget who else she hates.
Ellen Payne, Cersei, Joffrey,
Sir Ilyn, Cersei, Joffrey, the Mountain.
Yeah. That's gonna be interesting.
Well, I definitely thought this was This episode to me had a lot of really great writing in it. It had a lot of really good lines, and
Definitely.
that was. I'm not going to say like it was welcome, like the other episodes haven't been well written or something like that, but it was especially delightful because I like wordplay, and there was a lot of good wordplay here and a lot of good sort of dramatic irony, and it was probably my favorite episode so far this season.
Yeah, I would say from this moment on until the end of book 3, so far out of the 5 books that have been published, are the best 500 pages of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that every episode is really only going to get better, or at least be just as good, because so much stuff is about to happen for this book and then for book 3. So hopefully the next like season and a half will be really solid. After that, I'm predicting things might go downhill.
Well, or maybe the show can like step in and do its magic of excision / conflation / popping a little more dramatic irony into places so that it's, less boring.
Yeah, well, I think it's gonna be difficult because they're cutting characters, so
Ooh.
There are certain characters that you are introduced to now or very soon that is kind of like you need to know who they are for later on stuff to happen. So if they're intent on not making the cast too humongous, which it kind of is like fucking enormous at this point in the book.
Right now it's about at the limit of what I can kind of keep track of without, and that's with like a pretty solid foundation in the first 20 or so characters we meet in the season 1.
Well, also because in the 4th book you kind of lose a lot of your main characters and you get a whole new set.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating for those of us who waited a really long time.
Yeah, which is why Dance with Dragons was kind of the sequel everyone was waiting for, because it got back to the stories that you were waiting for.
Exactly. It got back to like the main storylines that sucked you in the first place. So we'll see what happens, because they're gonna have to be doing like a lot of rewriting and a lot of stuff. They might just decide to give us a whole new cast and give these guys a break. I don't really know.
Well, here's a question for you. If they're splitting both books 3 and 4 into 2 seasons,
I don't know about 4, but I know they're doing 3 into 2.
They might do 4. Do you think that they maybe start introducing characters from 4 as like side plots and maybe you don't know where they're going?
Yeah.
Totally.
Totally. They could do that. What I worry about is for the lay watcher to like to do that, and then a season later that character pops up again, and it's like, who are you? Oh.
Well, but that's what the wonderful previously on Game of Thrones.
Well, I mean, I would love the writers to just assume that their audience, at least their target audience, is pretty smart.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like they don't do that. I feel like, every 3rd episode is like for the smart ones, and then like, then it dips back down to keep the dumb ones watching, and then it comes back to the smart stuff. So yeah, good episode. I'm really glad that we're kind of moving into some of the juicy stuff so that I can at least watch you go, what the fuck? Well, we'll see what you have to say next week.
Yeah, I look forward to this.
Make sure you have a shot handy.
What was the drinking game? Anytime like a major character dies, you take a shot.
Oh, well, is that what we decided? I don't know. Double shot.
I don't know that we ever established clear rules, but that's kind of what I thought you meant by that comment. And
I lie. I'm a liar.
To wipe it from my mind, because it'll be so. You can't say that. You can't say what the fuck that many times without wiping it clean. Okay.
No, I think you're going to be really excited, because what's going to happen is like really exciting, and I think it's going to change stuff for you.
Okay. Well, we'll see. That wraps us up for this episode. Thanks for listening. Come back next week, and always remember to ask, more wine, sir?